Panasonic officially announced the coming of the GH5 Mark II and the GH6, so I picked up the original. Why?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32.
The short and easy answer would be this camera's cheaper and it's very highly spec'd. That's it, thanks. Just kidding. If you've been with this channel for any amount of time, first off, thank you. I very much appreciate you. If you've lurked through my videos, I also appreciate you. But what you would have seen, or you already know, is I've been using the Sony a7S Mark II for a long time for a large chunk of my video content creating. Anywhere from lighthearted YouTube videos all the way up to professional gigs like weddings or political ads. That was my huckleberry. My B&C cameras being the G7, the G85, G95, the Canon XC10 with a few black magic sprinkled in between. So for me, the reason for going with the GH5 goes a little bit deeper than just being cheaper and highly spec'd out. Obviously, those are very important factors, but I really wanted to streamline my video gear back into Micro Four Thirds for a few reasons. Now, full disclosure, I wasn't really looking for the GH5. I wanted the GH9 because I thought it'd be better for hybrid work, better autofocus, while still keeping some of those video-centric features, not all of them, but a lot of them that Panasonic is known for. But I found the GH5 incredibly cheap and I couldn't pass it up. 700 bucks, no vlog. And the reasons I wanted to go back are the size. Now, I'm not talking about the physical size of this camera because it's a big boy. And when you compare it to my Sony here, they're about the same. Everything else is smaller with the Micro Four Thirds. I mean, look at the size of the native glass here. I mean, this setup is nice because if I'm doing any kind of B-roll in the streets, whether it be photography or video work, I'd be a little bit more inconspicuous. Less turning heads, more natural shots. Not only that, is because you have the smaller sensor, you can adapt much smaller glass. Like I have the C-mount 15mm Cook lens that I love to use. I couldn't necessarily put it on my a7S II without getting any weird vignetting or distortion. But because this is a 4/3 size sensor, I don't have to worry about any of that. I can adapt a wide variety of lenses to this camera, anywhere as small as a 1-inch Bolex lens all the way up to my full frame Canon lenses, using a speed booster and lighting in some of that lost light, getting a full frame-esque look with the GH5. And another reason I like using smaller sensors for video is because they're just going to be easier to stabilize both in camera and otherwise. Inherently, when you have a smaller sensor, there's just going to be less work for the camera to do compared to IBIS in a full frame camera. Not to say that full frame in-body stabilization isn't progressing, because it is, but because this is smaller, it's just going to be easier to work with in-body. And the most glaring reasons for going with the GH5, again, it's very spec heavy. You have 4K, 10-bit 422 broadcast bit rates, cinema, you have anamorphic modes, vector scopes, you have much more, and it's all in body, and it's all for a fraction of the price that a lot of cinema cameras are going for. This is one of the cheapest, if not the most affordable camera with all of the above and more. And you don't have to use an external recorder to get any of that. So you can keep that small form factor and some money as well. I'd also like to mention that people tend to overlook this camera for photography, but I wouldn't do so for a few reasons. I mean, the autofocus isn't that good, sure, but look at this. This thing's a brick. It's shockproof, freeze-proof, weatherproof, and it has 2 SD card slots. So I don't feel unsafe at the least bit taking this out in the harsh environments that I always see here in Minnesota, where it's winter 9 months out of the year, and when it's warm I'm around the lake, so I need a camera that's durable, and this is it. So I guess we have to mention some of the cons. I mean, this camera is notoriously known for not having the best autofocus. I personally think it's workable, but I have seen some of its drawbacks. I mean, sometimes it'll latch on the background instead of the foreground, but you just kind of have to work with it. When you use native glass, it's obviously going to be a lot better. And through firmware updates, it's not as bad as it was. But that brings me to the main con. I mean, the camera's 4 years old at this point, and DP Review put it best when they said the GH5 Mark II is not an upgrade per se, but an update to the GH5. A large reason for the Mark II was just putting that new processor in the GH5 family, because this is using the older processor. We won't be seeing a lot more support or firmware updates for this. So it's not going to get that better autofocusing like the new cameras are, like the new GH5s or the G9s are getting. So this is just the slow and old version, right? I guess so, but it's workable. So to wrap up, I'm very pleased with the GH5 now, and I think I will be in the coming years. We're going to do a more hands-on video when I get more comfortable with this camera. I'm working on another camera classics with a very well-known camera, but after that, we're going to go to Jupiter and get very strange with that series. I mean, we have a few more Sigma cameras we're going to use, but we're going to go in the trenches and check out some of the strangest cameras that I could absolutely find. Stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.